So, Dr. Santoshi, let's participants are joining slowly. No problem. So let's say you introduce Madam.
Yes,
After
yes,
that, Madam can introduce herself in a brief way, in a better way. Then somewhat 5, 10 students, Madam may talk or they can give their introduction where are
yes,
from. So within
yes,
5, 10 minutes, it will cover and others will join. So that Madam will start. Because why she is waiting, Madam? Because
yes,
many participants has joined the sessions. So it
yes,
will
sir.
be nearly 60, 70 like that, the strength. That's why we are waiting. Anyway, we continue.
Yes,
We
yes,
will not make delay of the session. Thank you.
yes, sir.
Please.
So, dear participants, we are having with us Miss Salini Goyal, Madam. She is the Managing Director of International Council for Circular Economy. She is an alumnus of Delhi University. She is basically a leader or empowered woman. She is now working on sustainable development goals. She has worked with many renowned in organizations like Ford Foundation, Swiss Foundation on various projects. So I request Madam to address our participants. Mostly our participants are from academic background, so they will be very much benefited from your expertise. I hope so. And I hand over you to this session. Please address our student participants, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here and addressing you all today. Thank you, Dr. Mahapatra, and thank you, Professor Sharma, for the brief introduction. I am Shalini, and I'm connecting with you from Delhi. I am the Managing Director of International Council for Circular Economy. The council happens to be first formal organization that works on the tenets of circularity in India. We were established in 2020, but since then we have emerged as a thought leader in this domain. And when I say thought leader, we are working in academics, we are working in research, and we're working in innovation in this sector. And there are multiple facets of the organization. And I'll be very happy to share the the work of the organization with you. Because today I'm told that most of you are professors or associate professors from several universities and polytechnics. Let me also share some very important information right in the beginning before we go ahead is that the council is coming up with India's first journal on circular economy starting February 2022. So next month you will see this first journal, and going forward this journal would be a kind of a biannual published biannually, but then we also look at increasing the capacity to almost quarterly. And since you all are working in sustainability or are in sustainability enthusiast or also the enthusiast on circularity, we very much invite you all to submit papers of yourself or your students going forward to our journal. We'll be very happy to publish quality papers. We are looking at quality research in country, and we are blessed and we have the blessings of none other than the Niti Aayog itself. We work very closely with the think tank Niti Aayog, as it is called, the think tank of Government of India. And we work with them on policy making in circularity. That is another very important domain that the council has been working on. So going forward, let me start with a brief introduction of a few of you. I would like to know what are you, what are the participants here, and what are their ambitions, and what is their aspiration to attend this particular session. I look forward to a few of you introducing yourself, please. Anyone? I can see there are a lot of names. Professor Vikas Das, would you like to introduce yourself and share your experience with us? Okay, we have Miss Swati Singh. Anyone who would like to speak?
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, sir.
My name is Ameya Phantse. I'm working as assistant professor in Gharda Institute of Technology, which is located in Ratnagiri district, Konkan region of India.
Sure, sir.
And I'm working since last 5 to 6 years in this college as an assistant professor in mechanical engineering. And my interested areas are composite materials in particular. And my idea behind joining this FDP or this particular session is I'm in the phase of getting admission for PhD, and I'm searching for some research topic. So I'm attending this particular FDP to get some knowledge about this subject related to recycling and to have some idea related to the topic where I can do some research.
Sure. Thank you so much. That was very nice to know. Very specific, and I must tell you that there is some good research that is required in the domain of circularity. So when you talk about composites, you mean the composite material? You're talking about the material aspect of it?
Yes, ma'am. Recycling of plastics and composite materials.
Sure. I think this is a topic that I'll very briefly cover in my lecture today. The role of composite materials and how, what role do they play in circularity? So I think that will be a very brief of what you do, but then how is it related to circularity will be something that we will be discussing today. Anyone else who would like to introduce? Okay, so let me share my screen and let's start discussing about circularity. Okay, as you all have been told, I'm Shalini Goyal Bhalla. I'm the Managing Director at International Council for Circular Economy. Today, your entire the FDP is on recycling of plastics for sustainable growth, and there comes circular economy. How circular economy can play a role in making the plastic sector a bit more sustainable. Before I proceed further, this is my council. The council works on three important tenets, which is educate, innovate, and inspire. So first of all, educate, I say, because education on this particular area is the most important before we talk about any other, before we start working in this area. And that is why the council has launched India's first certified course on circular economy. In innovation, we are working with Atal incubation centers and multiple colleges on promoting circular business models through the information and a comprehensive program that we deliver to the students. And inspiring is where we inspire the industry to work on circularity aspects. Very briefly, today we are also going to touch all the three bit by bit as to what and how we can achieve circularity in several sectors. Before I start talking about circularity, it is very important to understand what is the overall view and why circular economy is being promoted as a solution to sustainability, and why are different governments talking about it. So here, if you look at this, I'm going to very simply begin with a simplistic view of development. In this graph, you will see there are countries that are listed on the x-axis, and there is a real GDP per capita listed on the y-axis. And as yes, ma'am.
Your slides are not changing.
Sorry, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry, what happened?
Madam, the slides are not visible.
Oh, let me try once again. Give me 2 minutes, sir. Can you see the slides changing now?
Now it is on second slide.
Can you see the simplistic view of development?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
ma'am.
yes.
Okay, if I do it full screen, is the slide changing now?
No, ma'am.
Now?
No, ma'am.
No.
No.
Okay,
Yeah, on
so
the same
shall
slide.
I play it this way? Is it changing? Will it change now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll not go into the full mode. I'll put it this way. Let me see if I can increase the size here slightly. Okay, is this better?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption. So I was discussing about why do we need circularity, and we shall try to explain this from a very simplistic view of development. There is a graph on the screen that you could see. The graph is simply showing the development, and it is showing the economies on the x-axis and GDP per capita on the y-axis. So you can see that United States, which has the highest, which is the richest economy, has the highest GDP per capita, whereas there are economies which are least developed economies and emerging economies like China, India, Nigeria, Bangladesh, even Ethiopia, who have very, very less GDP per capita. And you can see that there are a lot of economies that fall under the world average GDP. And there are again a lot of countries like Germany, Japan, Mexico even, and United States that have higher than the world average GDP. And why are we talking about the GDP today? Because GDP has been seen to have a direct correlation with the resource consumption. What we see in this graph here is that as the GDP increases, the GDP per capita increases, the resource consumption of the economy also increases. So if you see, again, countries like US, Qatar, UAE have a very high consumption and a very high GDP per capita, whereas countries who are developing come in middle, and the least developing countries come in the extreme left, bottom left of the graph here. So what we understand is that as our economic model becomes more, the GDP per capita in the economic model increases, the resource consumption will also increase. And because of this, there is a lockstep with the growth in GDP. That's what we come. And then what is, how do we correlate this to the population growth? We know that the world population growth rate has reduced, but despite that, the absolute number of people or population continues to grow. And this will continue to grow till 2100. So the world population growth, we have the entire chart. You could see that with the industrialization, it started to boom. And today, we are ever increasing. We see that there will be 10.9 billion people by 2100, whereas the population growth rate might have decreased largely by then. So if the population is going to increase and there is an increase in the consumption rate as well, that means that the overall consumption of materials is still going to increase despite whatever economic models we talk about. So what is happening is, you see, there is a continuous growth in the consumption of resources as well. So billions of tons per year, that is the amount of consumption of material that we are talking about. And then the population is still seeing a steep increase in the consumption rate. Now, what happens is, if the population is going to increase, the numbers are going to increase, and the consumption is going to increase, but the resources are finite. And since we have finite resources, that brings a major problem, and that is the problem of finite resources and finite capability of the earth to regenerate the waste material. So for that, circularity plays a very, very important role. And so you must have seen this diagram, which is the famous butterfly diagram by Ellen MacArthur Foundation, that talks about the loop-based approach of a circular economy. What they say is that either the products are biological cycles, are maintained by biological cycles, or they're maintained by technical cycles. But whichever way it is, either it is blue, which represents the technical cycle, or green, which represents the biological cycle, the material should come back to the loops, and it should not enter the waste stream. So basically, none of the material should be going to the landfill, and most of our resources should be recycled or reused or retained within the economy, and that kind of economy is called a circular economy. A very simplistic diagram of circular versus linear economy. So today we see a large linear economy, which is a take, make, dispose kind of an economy. We are extracting resources, we are making them into finished products, and these products are then finally disposed of. And when we dispose them of, we are actually losing the material value and the energy that goes into making that product completely. And also, while we manufacture these products, we are using fossil fuels as the major source of energy, which is again polluting the environment. So there are a lot of negative externalities in the form of pollution, greenhouse gases, a huge carbon footprint of every single product and every single action that we take today. And such a kind of a system is called a linear economy. Whereas compared to that, if we make a system where we talk about designing out waste, we design the product in such a manner that there is no waste that is created in the system, where we used largely renewable energy as the source of energy. So either it is solar energy, wind energy, or hydel energy, but reducing the use of fossil fuels so that the products have the least carbon footprint, and there is not much greenhouse gas emissions. And then the third is reusing the product and maintaining the value of products as much as possible, which is called value optimization in circularity, are the three methods by which we can change the linear economy to a circular economy. And that's why if you see, the diagram is represented by a circle, and we don't say that it's a take, make, dispose, but it is a make, use, and recycle the product as long as possible, so that the value of the products is maintained and the carbon footprint reduces as much as possible, is the best example of linear circular economy. I'm sure you all are, since you all are professors, you would know about, and you must have heard about this data, but I'll simply very quickly reiterate about the plastic waste statistics. This is a CPCB report of 2018 and 19, which states that India generated almost 3.36 million metric tons per annum of plastic waste in 2018 and 19, roughly 9,200 metric tons per day. So that's a huge amount of plastic waste that is being generated. The municipal solid waste generated was 55 to 65 million metric tons. Plastic waste is approximately 5 to 6% of the total solid waste generated in our country. And per capita waste generation, I'm talking about India's richest state, which is Goa, is 60 grams per capita per day, 60 grams. Whereas the same average comes to 37 grams in Delhi, and the national average is 8. So 8 grams per day per capita is a very kind of less as compared to the plastic waste generation in Goa and Delhi respectively, but at the same time, we are producing huge quantities of plastic waste. When we talk about plastics, it is very important. In fact, for any sector, it is very important to understand who are the stakeholders. One stakeholder, obviously, that comes to our mind is the PIBOs, is the producers, importers, and brand owners, as it is listed by the policymakers as well, who are responsible for the collection of the plastic waste today because of the EPR policy. They are the ones who are producing or importing the plastic, and they are also have developed a very huge distribution channels, as we call them, supply chains. And these are the major stakeholders in the game of plastics. So who's another one? Are the local bodies who are responsible for maintaining the infrastructure for collection, segregation, storage, transportation, and processing and disposal of the plastic waste. They play a very important role, because these are the bodies which are responsible for keeping our environment green, who are responsible for recycling the plastic waste as long as possible, and stop the burning of plastic in major areas. So one example here is, I'll talk about the hilly regions in north. If you look at Himachal Pradesh, if you look at Uttarakhand, people there usually burn their plastic waste every day because they cannot throw it, or sometimes they can throw it, they throw it down the valley. But otherwise, a lot of hotels and the homestays, you will find that they burn their plastic waste, which is the worst thing to do with the plastic. Then there are waste generators, which include the citizens as well. The waste generators, the responsibility there is that he shall take steps to reduce the generation of plastic waste, not to litter the plastic waste, and most importantly is to segregate waste at source, as we call it, source segregation. But how much of that is happening in our country? Different areas have different numbers and data. So if we talk about Indore, you've seen that Indore has actually won Swachhta Sarvekshan Abhiyan for consecutive 4 years. A large responsibility lies on the local body, but as well as on the citizens who are abiding to the law and segregating it. But what is happening to the segregated waste is an important question, and that is the next thing that we will be discussing. You know that there had been EPR in plastic waste that was introduced in the Plastic Waste Management Regulation 2016, where the PIBOs were the producers, importers, and brand owners were made responsible for the disposal and treatment of the plastic waste. EPR makes the producers responsible for whatever they produce, whatever they sell in the market, the design of the product and packaging material, to be reducing the amount of plastic that goes into it. And we have seen that despite the EPR rules that came in 2016, the major brand owners have actually been levied with huge penalties for not being able to collect the plastic. Now, while we talk about it, it is important to also understand why major firms like Coca-Cola, Bisleri, Pepsi have been actually penalized. Because the entire market, the entire supply chains that they built was a forward-looking, an upstream supply chain. They never looked at the downstream supply chain. And EPR wanted them to introduce a downstream supply chain. It takes time to build it. So all these years, the PIBOs have taken time to build the downstream supply chains, which is called the reverse logistic. We are going to talk about it also. And so reverse logistic plays an important role when it comes to circularity. And today we see, when we are talking about it, we are seeing that EPR is becoming a very important policy when it comes to, and not only in India, it is actually globally true that EPR has its own benefit in different sectors. And only in December 2021, not even a month old, Government of India has introduced draft policy rules in the rubber tires as well. And so that is again a very important and a very welcome move by the Government of India. Now, when we start thinking about all these supply chain models, we need to rethink how the businesses work. And that is why it is important, as well as easier, I say, it is easier for any kind of emerging economy, particularly not the developed ones, to apply the rules of reverse logistic, because our businesses are, a lot of our businesses, not the big brands, but a lot of our businesses are in preliminary stage, and that gives us a kind of a better position as compared to many other economies, where we can start on collecting mass volumes back from the user, develop a concept where we can generate awareness on segregation and so on. A lot of time I see that people say that this is a problem. I see this problem as a challenge, but at the same time, a lot of opportunity for the industry to develop on this. So we need to develop reverse logistics, involve stakeholders, involve different players who can play a very important role, and not forgetting the informal sector that we have. So our informal sector is a boon for us in the sense that these little players do help in, they're like scavengers. They help us in getting rid of the waste that is produced at the local level. So all these people, the manufacturers, the urban local bodies, be it the waste generators from individual to institutional generators, consumers, recyclers, segregators, and informal waste pickers, all of them play a very important role, and the business model should be redrawn in a sense that each one of them is included in this cycle. And once we start thinking of such kind of business models, it will become easier to implement EPR, and it will become easier to implement circularity as well. So coming back again to the Indore business model. So Indore has now achieved the very first step, that is segregation. So once they have segregated, they have different waste material that is there. Now they can come up with innovative solutions, innovative business models to use that waste, and that waste, once it is reused in a proper manner, it will lead to circularity. So we are building up on that model to be introduced in other areas as well. But the most important is that it starts with segregation. Now we all know plastics is a wonder polymer, as most of you have written, read, and said in different forums. Yes, it is a wonder polymer, and it is not very easy to do away with plastic. But how can then we do away with the very basic problem of plastic packaging? We understand, we appreciate that plastic has wonderful properties, and these properties make this plastic a versatile material. But we are using it in such a manner that we are creating a huge waste. And since it is made from fossil fuels, it is sometimes the industry has a complaint that recycling it is more energy intensive. Also, there is huge investment that goes into it, but at the same time, a virgin material, producing it from virgin material is easier and cheaper, and that's why perhaps recycling of plastic becomes an issue. But we need to kind of work on eliminating this problem, and packaging, especially the MLP, the multi-layered packaging, plays a very important role, which actually is hardly picked up even by the waste pickers. And as the data shows, a staggering 8 million tons leak into the ocean every year. And we know that the number is rising. There are several initiatives by multilateral organizations who are working on reducing the marine litter, but the numbers are still rising. And so we need to take care of this. And an incredible fact that was listed last year was that there will be more plastic in ocean than fish by 2050. So when we are talking about this model, what we understand is, if you look at the diagram here, this diagram has been again taken from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. They say that today we are using 80%, sorry, the data is more, it says 98% virgin stock, and rest of it, only 2%, comes through a closed loop recycling. So you can see 78 million tons is the kind of annual production, out of which 40% goes to landfill, 32% leaks, and this leaks into anywhere leaks into maybe the oceans, into the landfills, etc. And 14% of it is incinerated or used by pyrolysis or for any other kind of energy recovery. Hardly 2% of it is re-looped into cascading models. So out of which, again, we can see that there is 4% process loss and 8% of it is cascaded into recycling. So the numbers are staggering, and that is why the plastic manufacturing currently is largely a linear model. So the plastic use, if we go by numbers, some facts here. If we go by numbers, still we see that, I hope it's all fine. Is anyone saying anything? Not at the moment, okay. So the use of plastic has increased 20-fold in past 50 years. While we know that plastic has its own benefit, we know that there are negative consequences of it if it becomes waste or pollution. Documentaries such as Blue Planet 2, I highly recommend every one of you to look at that. Shows the impact of plastic pollution on wildlife around the world and have shocked and spurred a public backlash against the material. However, I also must emphasize here that it's not the material, but the way we are using and managing the waste, the plastic waste, is a major problem. In 2016, a foundation published a report which shows that most plastic packaging is used only once, and only 14% is collected for recycling. 95% of the value of plastic waste material, packaging material, worth 80 to 150 billion annually, is lost to the economy. A second report published in 2017 with our partners, we show that without fundamental redesign and innovation, about 30% of plastic packaging will never be reused or recycled. So these are kind of highly problematic issues that we need to look at. What are we looking at is a circularity of plastics. Once again, enlarge the diagram. So what we are saying is, if we have to use the virgin material, it should be sourced from renewably run sources. So basically what they're saying is the energy that we want to use should be renewably sourced. Then comes the design and production needs to be changed. We should be using and reusing the existing stock. A lot of it should be recycled to improve the economics and quality of it, and a bare minimum of it should be going to the anaerobic digestion or any other kind of composting, and that is where we look at circularity of plastic and its allied materials. When we talk about circularity, I must also talk about many other areas that needs focus. I start with innovation. So what is the role of innovation and redesigning? With plastics being still produced at a rapid rate, we need to find a way, either give it another life. So we either have to give this plastic another life or break it into less harmful products. So you must have read about this study which was conducted in 2012 by Yale University, which discovered a species of mushroom from Amazon rainforest that is capable of digesting plastics, or more specifically breaking it down into polyurethane into organic matter. Following this discovery, tests were done on several other species of mushroom to see if similar process can take place. And to the amazement of the researchers, including oyster mushrooms, which is commonly consumed across the world, could be actually used. Further studies are currently taking place to see if mushrooms can be safely eaten once they have digested the plastic. Now, the point is, can mushrooms be reused, which would make a full circular economy model? Although it may be tricky to convince people to eat mushrooms which have come from a landfill site. But even if we choose not to eat them, this is a great way of letting nature speed up the decomposition process of plastics, which would otherwise take hundreds of years. So this is one kind of innovation that's happening, and perhaps a very important topic to research on. Then I'm sure you must have heard about bioplastics or biodegradable plastics. Although it is still an issue and it is harder to argue with use of plastic for certain items that we expect to last for a long time. A TV, for example, is usually made from plastic because it is cheap, can be molded easily into the right shape, and most importantly, it lasts for a very long time before it starts breaking down. But there are thousands of applications of plastic where these properties of never degrading is simply not required. Plastic is used for a few days or weeks and is then thrown away into the landfill or simply burnt. This has led to many companies to create biodegradable plastic as an alternate. Biodegradable plastic that will break down and not be left in the environment for hundreds of years. One of my favorite examples from this is the company I will list here is Mobius. They have created a biodegradable plastic to replace plastic mulch film, a commonly used plastic in horticulture, used for crops over huge areas to prevent the damage. The best thing about the solution of Mobius is that they utilize an existing waste stream to make plastic, creating a circular economy. So when they use a waste stream, they are actually creating circularity. This waste stream of lignin, which is a byproduct of paper industry and which would usually be discarded or burned. So we are actually either removing it from the landfill or avoiding burning of that, provides a very good example of by Mobius to get into circularity. Then we all also read about 3D printing. The 3D structures of printing is a very growing technology. In fact, if you look at the Atal Tinkering Labs of which are being promoted by the Atal Incubation Center, Atal AIM, Atal Incubation Mission of Niti Aayog, they are promoting.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Slides are again not changing, ma'am.
Not changing once again.
Yes, ma'am.
Which slide can you see the last?
Biodegradable plastic.
Okay, let me try again. Can you see now 3D structures?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I was talking about the ATLs. ATLs do promote 3D printing and this technology in the schools. And it's a very, very important technology that allows anyone to download the plans for an item and see it printed in 3D right in front of their eyes, the way it has been conceived. A group of students at UC Berkeley have managed to find a way to use single-use plastic material, melt them, back down, and then use them to produce useful items rather than just letting them into the landfill. This was taken to another level by a New Raw Association who used the same process on a large scale to 3D print street furniture out of waste plastic. It takes 100 kgs of plastic waste to create just one of the street benches. But when we are talking about finding a solution to this waste stream, the more plastic it takes, the better. So basically, we are talking about using plastic into making of some kind of furniture or other material. There are other, I've seen also these kind of innovations coming in India, where a lot of plastic recyclers are now using plastic into making new products. And then so one of the plastic recycler also claims to be recycling MLP, though I'm not technically or maybe an expert on the polymers, so I am not 100% sure their claim of recycling MLP, is that the right thing, or perhaps one of you or someone from here can help me in understanding, is that the right thing or can it be done? But yes, what they say is they claim that they are converting the MLP into pellets, and these pellets are then melted to form different structures. Is that a possibility? Because what I understand of MLP is that there are 7 layers, and each layer will have a different melting point. So how come the pellets are formed when it cannot be segregated into several layers. So that remains a question. But yes, there are certain innovations happening in India where the plastic waste has been used, and one of the best use that I see is the use in roads. So I know there is a stretch of road on Mumbai-Pune highway which has been made with plastics. Similarly, there are now I heard also our Minister of Road and Transport, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, who has shared his vision of using plastic in every single road in India. That will be a huge consumption of the plastic waste, but I'm sure. They also say that the life expectancy of the road increases by the use of plastic, and the dependency on tar reduces. So I'm very keen to see these kind of innovations coming in India. Then largely you've seen the using it as a fuel. Scientists in 2016, they managed to find a way to break down polyethylene based single-use plastics into alkane, which is commonly used as a diesel fuel. Around 55% of the plastic can be used as a fuel, but the rest can be used to create other products. What they claim is that all of it can be put to use. Not all plastics which are made from polyethylene, so it only solves a part of the problem. However, for other startups such as Licella in Australia have found a way to break down polystyrene as well. As you know, polystyrene is a very huge waste stream, and right now in India we don't have enough knowledge around breaking down of polystyrene and how to convert it into biofuels. This solution can only be a temporary solution, however, as burning diesel fuels produces harmful greenhouse gases that are causing climate change. So although this is solving the issue around plastic waste, it isn't tackling the entire environmental issue at play. Solutions such as this must only be used as we transition towards renewable energy. So if you look at circularity brings in a very important aspect of using renewable energy. So while we may be seeing plastic to be converted to any kind of fuel, though it may look as a circular solution currently, it's not certainly a circular solution, because ultimately the fuel that will be produced will be highly waste intensive, will have a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. So that cannot be a long-term solution to the problem, definitely. What we need to find is something which is sustainable for a longer time, and certainly biofuels are not considered to be a circular solution. Role of technology, that plays a very important role when we talk about circularity. Data, the right collection, tracking of the things becomes a major issue. And when we talk about that, we need to also see what role technology can play in bringing in circularity. So let's discuss one by one. Tracking and traceability. So basically talking about, okay. So tracking and traceability, we're talking about how could we track the plastic waste, and how can we trace each plastic product throughout its life cycle. Unless we do that, it will be difficult. So tracking becomes a very important concern, especially in economies like India, Africa, which are developing regions. And municipalities play a very important role here in ensuring a proper waste management, considering the environmental and the economic objectives of their economies. This is very important, and there needs to be a transparent system. And when we talk about transparency, the reporting system could be digital, and such a kind of a digital system could be compatible with environmental regulations at their local level. But also the solution should be economically viable for waste collection and the recovery solutions. What I understand is that technologies related to AI, blockchain play a very important role. Blockchain particularly can create disruptive solutions for sustainability and environment. So such technologies can help in closing the loop of the plastics and making plastics by plastic economy more circular by eliminating the friction from the supply chains, providing real-time information, and collecting and sorting waste more efficiently. Then comes the data analytics. Again, as we understand, the data plays a very, very important role because once we have the right data, it enables every single stakeholder to take better decisions, better informed decisions. And that is where, once again, technology comes into play. Because the progressive digitization is helping to substantially optimize waste collection processes and recycling activity. Internet of Things, as you must have heard, create links between hardware and software. So waste collectors can report the level of trash they are holding. Waste disposal orders can be created in an ERP system, and emptying routine can be planned efficiently using an optimization solution, thereby ensuring the optimized use of all the resources. This is true for other waste streams as well. We are working on one such model with textiles. Textile is another kind of a waste stream which is largely untracked, and in fact, its data, like plastic, has a lot of data that's available. Textile doesn't have any data. So there we look at data analytics. Digitization is shrinking packaging sizes. As we know, increasing complex material is something that Professor, you were talking about, and in particularly functional composite packaging are all very significant factor. As a result, the work of disposal companies is becoming increasingly extensive, complicated, and expensive. So when I talk about this, the more complex the packaging or the product, it becomes very difficult for the recyclers or maybe the people who are working on the disposal management to track them. Online portals and mobile-based tools help connect all the actors in the value chain, helping plastic organizations to trace the flow of material and create digital marketplaces. This is very important because we need to kind of track where the resources are, how are they flowing in the economy, and where are the right solutions needed. These solutions create high level of transparency in the supply chain, which is important requirement for the global brands that want to increase their use of socially responsible recycled plastics in their manufacturing processes. It is most common for organizations to use a mobile app, often supported by a website or messaging service like WhatsApp, to enable customers to report the type of waste they have available and book collection services. So we've seen several startups coming in who are kind of working and utilizing the technology to collect waste from the waste generator, be it an individual generator or institutional generator, and they provide wonderful services to the customer and also encourage them to segregate their waste. More of such systems, more of such digitized systems are required to enable both the bulk generators as well as individual generators to provide better services, and by providing their responsibly managed solutions for management of plastic waste. There is a correlation. Now I want to talk about the correlation which has been developed while we are talking about this to improve the citizen engagement in recycling, to operational efficiencies, and to increase transparency in the supply chain. The more of transparency, the more citizen engagement. That is the kind of correlation that we have seen. Use of waste data tracking includes RFID technologies or fill sensors to detect fill levels and monitor all the material generated, reused, and recycled. And that is where digital technology plays an important role. So more of such usage, I believe that the citizens could be promoted to use of these things and segregation as well. Development and adoption of digital solutions such as smart bins, smart trucks, robotic sorting, mobile application analytic tools, as well as optimizing software partnerships and collaboration with IT companies and startups will further enhance the product innovation, customer engagement, and cost-effective business models. I think most of you would agree to the fact that technologies such as AI and IoT are being designed to improve collection and recycling activities such as bin monitoring. I've seen this smart bin coming in to monitor and weigh and automate the plastic waste segregation. So such kind of solutions, they help to match the supply of plastic waste with demand for collection as well. So more we look at these things, I think the better we will be able to solve the solution or problem of waste management. Again, coming to it, I think we've already discussed about blockchain, but there is something called a QR code, and QR codes, they do play a very important role in managing and kind of tracking the shipments of waste, which is again a digitized material. Now, talking about how can we bring circularity in the plastic thing, how does the brand owners look into circularity? The very first thing is design for circularity. So when we talk about circularity, we do not talk about the end of life cycle, which is recycling. So recycling is a part of circularity, but recycling is the least value proposition in a circular economy. What is more important is recovering the value right from the beginning, and that is what we call as design phase. So circular economy work on a systems thinking, and we look at the beginning of the cycle, which is design phase, which becomes the key principle in a circular economy. As I talked initially, designing out waste and pollution are the key characteristics of a circular economy. So we're looking at how to design out waste from the entire system and how we could reduce pollution. The reality is that most things today are still designed in a linear model, and this means that almost everything needs to be redesigned in accordance with the principle of circular economy. A lot of, again, companies are now looking at the design phase and improving the design phase to make it more eco-friendly design, and also using and the renewable energy in their production phases. That reduces the overall negative externality of the production system and enable them to design circular economy right from the design phase. Then the second thing is designing of the inner loops. These are the inner loops that we talked right in the beginning of the butterfly diagram. These are the inner loops are reuse, resharing, remanufacturing, and refurbishing, which are close to the center. The more closer and narrower the loops are, the more material value is recovered. So reuse is the first, then comes repair, then comes refurbishing, remanufacturing, and these are right again designed right from the beginning of the production phase. So one example that I see is Apple now is looking at repairing their phones as well. So that repair model is to a strategy of Apple to downsize the overall criticism that the company was facing from the sustainability market, because Apple is largely responsible for building in obsolescence. I'm sure most of you would have heard about law of obsolescence. If not, please ask me. I'll be very happy to explain that as well. So Apple was responsible for building in obsolescence, and that's why from sustainability experts, Apple saw a lot of criticism coming in. So now Apple has even started to build in repair models for its phones, and that is where we say that they are now designing for inner loops. Then there are service model. A very good example that I can tell you is a shift in light sector. So Philips is a very famous example where Philips stopped selling the light fixtures in UK, but they started selling, instead of light fixtures, they started selling it as a serviced model. So they started selling lux per person. So what they did was they started selling light as a service. So this shifts the burden of the product from from the product from the producer, from the user to the producer, which helps in longevity of the product and thus maintaining again the material value. Rentals, subscription and leasing models, they all also come under the same kind of service models. We've seen rental models also coming up in Holland particularly. So if you look at Netherlands, they have come up with a lot of rental models. In India, I would say that rental models have been there for ages. They may not be into the mainstream, but that is what they have been looking at. Designing products that lasts is another very important thing. One of the things that we need to understand is a lot of companies, they started building cheap products that would have a very short lifespan. And that is again an unethical practice. And what we want is that the products should be made in such a way that they are modular, one. Two, that they have good materials, so which is called material and product should be of good quality, so that they last long, so that there is least damage, so that they could be reused multiple times, if not by one user, by multiple users. I've listed also this Japanese art of kintsugi. Kintsugi is reusing and repairing the things as long as possible. And these kind of practices exist even in India, though there is no specific name to it, but then we do use products as long as possible. And that is what is a circular model. Then we talk about the circular material choices. Now again, here we talk about materials which are more fit for a circular economy than the other material. There are certain materials which have chemicals which are hazardous to both humans as well as the environment. We see in plastics particularly, there are resins which are important, but then there are also additives which may be used unintentionally for improving, maybe they may have an important role, may not have an important role. So some of them may improve flexibility or durability, but there are ways to design them out. By choosing material that are safer and circular is something very important that fits into the making of products and services more circular. Last, but it is one of the last point, but still a very important point, is reducing the resource requirement. The idea is to deliver more utility using the minimum amount of material possible. So there are ways of to virtualize your offerings, creating a digital rather than a physical product. Also means designing your product or the service in such a way that it requires only minimal amount of the physical material to create is something that should be looked at. And again, there are solutions that are coming up in UK using for that. Designing for modularity, yes, a very, very important point for circularity. Another thing that we've seen in industry happening is making a product as a one entity, a product as a single, what could I say, the physical entity. However, if we break down the product into modules and each of them being a separate module that could be changed if it doesn't work, makes the product more repairable, reusable, upgradable, and remanufacturable. So what happens is, what we are suggesting, I'll give you an example of a hand mixer. If the rotating unit of the hand mixer is inbuilt and cannot be separated from the mixture, the hand blender, then in that case, repairing it or reusing it will be very difficult. However, if this unit is separate unit, then its repairability becomes quite easier. A very simple, again, another simple example is mobile phone. A lot of mobile phones now have inbuilt batteries. So what happens is, if the battery after 2 years of usage goes bad, most of us would tend to kind of change the phone. Whereas if battery is detachable, can be disassembled, then we can change the battery, and that is what exactly modularity says. that modular systems are easier to customize. Therefore, they are more repairable, they reduce obsolescence, and they can help longevity of the product, increasing the overall usage of the product. And that is where modularity plays extremely important role. Then comes the supply chains. We were talking about the reverse supply chain, which is very important. In case of plastic waste, recovery facilities are important to be built in so that separate materials could be segregated, and then these segregated materials could be then used for their specific purposes. Reverse supply chains needs to be built in. While we were talking about the upstream, downstream also needs to be looked into. Proper infrastructure is to be kind of set up right from day one. Proper systems of collection. If segregated, the best. If not, then the second best is to segregate it at the collection point. All these transformations in the supply chain are extremely important to recycle the plastic waste. I'll now wind up my presentation with a little bit of comparison of business as usual versus circular business models in India in 2030, according to a FICCI Accenture report. If we keep doing business as usual, the size of GDP, which is at risk of loss, is $697 billion. Whereas if we improve technology, and we then kind of see improving technology can help reduce that risk to $382 billion by 2030. Then there is a very nice comparison which was done by Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which compares the cash out costs in the potential development parts. So in 2030 compared to 2050, the total cash out cost in the three focus areas that they were studying, one was mobility, second was food, and third was cities and construction. So in these three areas, the total cash out cost in 2030 is -14, and compared to that is -40 in 2030 if there is a circular model instead of a linear model. Similarly, there are other comparisons in the potential development path. You can see the reduce in greenhouse gas emissions. You can see the reduction in the consumption of virgin non-renewable materials. Similarly, land use for commercial and residential buildings and water usage in the construction industry. All of them seem to have a cash out, a total comparison comparatively shows that the circular scenarios are far better as compared to the current scenario if we aim at looking at circular economy in India. So definitely the circularity and circular developing our businesses circular is definitely something that we must look at. I will now wind up by enlisting a few more work that we have done. This is my book, and this book is available on Amazon. I welcome you all to read the book. This is India's first book on circular economy, and the book was launched by none other than the CEO of Niti Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Kant, who has personally read the entire book and has given a wonderful feedback on this book. Then these are the courses in circularity. These courses are on our website. Again, you're most welcome. So anyone who wants to study, there are basics to very high management courses that are available. We are introducing 6 more courses very soon. So you will have a whole kitty of courses that will be available. This is our annual report, the work of the council that we have done in last 1 year. We were So like I said, we were established in 2020. So this report you can download from our website. Enlists our work from 2020 to 2021. And I'll be happy to share any more things that you have in mind, or would you like to get in touch with me directly. Any help that I could do to your institutes. We also have, while I talk about these courses, let me also share with you that we have also launched a course on Swayam portal of AICTE, which is available now for everyone who wants to learn. And I have just been told by AICDE that from the day of its launch, which is in January, I think we launched it around early this time, and not many days, but there are around 2,000 users who are already taking the course. So you're most welcome also to take that course. We are developing an elective course in circular economy for colleges. So in case you want to reach out to us for those courses, we are happy to again get in touch with you for those courses. Thank you so much.
Yes, participants, if you are having any questions, then you can directly ask Madam. Shalini ma'am is here.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer them.
Someone is asking in chat box that is there any membership in your council?
So there is a membership for the companies, but not for the individuals. You can become a member, sir. For becoming, you are also asking for the eligibility. There are mentors and influencers who are the people who are working in that sector. But if you ask about anyone who wants to become a normal member of the council, there is no fee for that. Any other questions, please?
Dr. Siddhartha? I think, yes, he has raised hand, so.
Sure.
Anyone else is having any questions?
Hello.
Yes, Professor
Yes.
Francis.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am. First of all, I will tell you that it is very nice presentation and we got a lot of information from this presentation.
Thank you.
My question is that, according to you, what are the potential research areas in this circular economy field?
So you're asking particularly about plastics, or you're asking about any other?
I'm asking about any other potential research area in the field of circular economy.
Well, sir, there are a few very important areas that I look at, but I'll definitely tell you the areas which I am working keenly on and I have a lot of knowledge about. I think I can get in touch with you. Please get in touch with me separately, and I can discuss with you separately on this, and I'll be very happy to share all those areas which definitely need a lot of research to be done in this area. There are quite a few potential areas, and there are quite a few areas where governments are also looking into help. So I can definitely assist you, but totally depends again on your interest.
Okay, ma'am.
Sure. You have my email ID from the presentation. Please contact me and I'll be happy to assist you.
Okay, from where I can get your email ID, ma'am?
It was there. I can write it down here, so you can take from here as well.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome. Here. In the chat box. Any more questions?
Yes, participants, if you are having any questions, please ask. Okay, if you are having you have any question further, then you can write email directly.
Okay, ma'am, there is one more question from my side. Is there any measures taken? Are there any measures taken by Government of India for promoting this circular economy?
Yes, Professor Francis. So there were the council had been very actively working with the Niti Aayog to introduce circular strategy. While we were thinking of bringing overall bigger strategy on circularity, but there were 11 subcommittees which were formed by Niti Aayog in last year. It was January 2021. There were different, you will find this information on the internet. There were 11 subcommittees who have presented their drafts to Niti. The drafts lie with Niti, and so very soon these drafts will be converted into policies, and these policies will be circulated to different ministries. So what Niti is doing is they have appointed different ministries for the different areas of expertise, and these ministries will be ruling out the final policies. So you will see that coming very soon in the next year.
Okay.
I mean, this year.
Ma'am, yes, you have shown few books you have published and you are going to publish in this year, coming year. So all those books, out of those, I found one is for management. Circular economy for management.
Ma'am, I've published only one book, this one, Circular Economy, Re-Emerging Moment, not on management. Are you talking about the course, I think?
Okay, that was the course. Okay.
Yeah, Circular Business Management is a course that we provide on our website. So anyone who wants to understand about the business models or emerging business model in this sector can definitely look at that. So.
Then we can have to basically register on that.
Yes, you can go to our website and then register for those courses.
Those courses. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, if you are having any further question, then we can ask. I don't think they are having any further question.
Yeah.
So, if in future you are having any type of question related to circular economy, basically, then you can write us, or we can convey your concerns to madam directly, or you can directly mail her, because she has already provided her email ID in our chat box.
Sure.
So let me conclude this session. Thank you, madam, for addressing our participants. This session is very interesting and very informative, because till now we had sessions over recycling of plastics, different technology and other things. This was the first session where some economic analysis and economic approach was there, and this is very new to me also, and for I hope for other participants also. This is very new and interesting topic. I hope our participants have enjoyed and learned a lot from this session. You have explained everything very well and pretty good approach. The slides you are presented beautifully, and thank you, ma'am, for giving your time for addressing our participants, particularly our professors in various all over India in AICT institutes. So they might be encouraging their students to take up some courses. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I can see one hand, if you don't mind. I think Siddharth Chatterjee sir wants to say something.
Yes, I was asking him, but I think it is by mistake.
Okay.
He has clicked on that one.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was very nice addressing you all, and I'll be very happy to if any further knowledge sessions or any sessions are required, I'll be very happy to assist. In your colleges, if there are any kind of faculty development programs happening, I'll be very happy to engage and deliver on circular economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much. So dear participants, this was the last session of today's FDP program. The recorded part I'll be sharing after completion of 5 days, basically. So I am not going to share individual PPTs. And tomorrow there are 2 more sessions are there, and last session is about your quiz test and feedback and other things. So we are expecting you all to be present tomorrow at your regular time, like 10 a.m. Thank you all.